John, here's my next conversation for you. Let's get into it right now. When it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles, yesterday we talked about Jordan Davis. All right, we talked about the contract, projections or potentially what that could look like, and whether the Eagles will do it. Well, I want to go to that defensive side of the ball again, and I want to look at Reed Blankenship. I think he's going to be a guy that gets a contract soon, and I want to kind of lay out what that might look like for the people.
Good, because I want to know what it's going to look like.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one, but I do want to at least talk through it and see if we can, gauge some clarity on what it might look like. But your initial thoughts when I say Reed Blankenship, when I say new contract, what comes into the head there in terms of a ballpark?
Number one, the Eagles want to give him a new contract. I'm very confident on that. You can figure out why on your own. They're going to give him a new contract. I don't know what it's going to look like. He's obviously not going to get paid like Antoine Winfield Jr. or Derwin James or Minkah Fitzpatrick, yada, yada, yada. Those are your top safeties on the market.
Right.
Where does it begin? I don't know. My guess is they want to keep it around CJ level, which was 9, 10.
How about around what Justin Reed just got?
Well, 10, yeah. I mean,
he got what, 3 years, 31.5, I think he got.
Yeah, maybe in that range. Julian Love, maybe you factor in the cap going up, 11, somewhere in that range. That would be my best guess, but boy, he's tough because he deserves more than that, but he's undrafted. And that complicates things for the player, for the negotiation. The teams try to take advantage of that. That's what the Eagles did. Let's be honest. I mean, the Eagles, it's not a bad thing. It's a smart, but it is also team friendly. They did it with TJ, who was undrafted. They bought out his, restricted free agency year by giving him money early because they said that's pretty good. And they did the same thing with Reed. But, they're getting a good deal. The team's getting a good deal. And the player feels good because he comes in undrafted and he's like, security. But he's outperformed that. And how high does it go? I don't think it's going to go much higher than Justin Reed. By the way, did you see Justin Reed was on Kay Adams' show talking about so people went, yeah, they were going to pay Justin Reed. They weren't giving Justin Reed a 3-year contract. They were not.
Well, what he said, made a lot of people think that the Eagles were really in on him. How did you decipher it?
I deciphered it as the Eagles like the player. They've always liked the player. That part's true. He's very close to Christian Parker, which he said on the show. He's got a history with the Fangio scheme, which he said on the show. So all of that fits. But, Christian Parker don't make player roster decisions. So I'm sure, if he's texting with Christian, Christian's very invested. And I'm sure if the Eagles could get him for 1 year at a decent number, they would have said, yeah. But I think there was this presumption because somebody else put out that the Eagles were in there. Look at their offseason. You think they're going to turn right for Justin Reed? We're going to do this. We're going to be very disciplined.
Yeah.
So part of it is true. They like the player. They've always liked the player. And if he didn't have interest to where he could get a 3-year deal and it was a 1-year prove-it deal, they probably would have pressed a little bit harder. But yeah, there's a lot of players close to coaches and vice versa. Coaches don't make roster decisions. Some do, very few, but some do. And position coaches don't make roster decisions, certainly. So anyway, tangent day.
It is tangent day. I'm looking now. I'm looking at some of the contracts for safeties on the market just to give some people some reference points. John obviously mentioned Antoine Winfield. We're nowhere in that ballpark, but just so you know, he signed a 4-year, $84 million deal with $45 million guarantee, with an average annual value of $21 million. We're nowhere in that ballpark. Derwin James is number 2 at $19 million average per year. Minka Fitzpatrick, one of my favorite safeties, obviously Bama guy, 18.4 is his average annual value. Xavier McKinney, you guys remember, Eagles were interested in Xavier McKinney last year.
They really interested in Xavier McKinney. They wanted.
He got 16.7. So 4 years.
And they bailed. Remember, they bailed, and they really wanted Xavier McKinney. I mean, really wanted.
His guarantees were low. He only had $23 million guaranteed of that $67 million deal.
Yeah, but they're very disciplined, man. Yeah. A couple of years ago, they really wanted Marcus Williams, and they had a number, and it went over that, and they walked away.
Yeah, Marcus got a similar deal. He got 5 years, 70, 14 average annual value with $32 million guaranteed. So those are the top safeties. Like, I like Reed Blankenship a lot. I don't think he's particularly close to those guys. So if you go down to the second level, you see some guys like Javon Holland just got signed by New York this year. He had 3 years, $45 million with 15 average. I think that's still probably a little high. You go down to Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, 3 years, $27 million with $9 million. Justin Reed, we talked about 3 years, $31 million, 31.5 with 10.5 million average annual value. I think all those guys are a little above CJ or above Reed Blankenship. And then if you go over to PFF and look at where Reed's graded out, he's graded out a lot worse than most of those guys. He's down at 48 on the safeties for overall defense. Is 10 too high for Reed Blankenship?
I don't think so. I think it might be a little bit too low, but we'll see. I mean, the Eagles are going to try to get a deal. I mean, that's what, and, I thought CJ was underpaid, but CJ's underpaid for a reason. And he's often his worst enemy.
Yeah.
So, Cam Bonham got 15 million, a little bit of a, is he better than Cam Bonham? I'd rather have him, but I'm a little bit biased from seeing Reed growing every day, seeing him, what he means to the team. As Slay mentioned, Slay got in trouble for letting everyone in on what the team thinks of him. So I'm sure he's not getting 15, but there's a player who signed this offseason that I think he's better than. But that's a real thing. The undrafted stigma is a real thing. I don't think there's any way he's getting 15. So, CJ was at 9. They probably want to keep it around that range. Again, maybe the uptick in the salary cap from last year to this year kicks that up to 10 or 11. That's where I think they want to be, in that wheelhouse. But that's pure speculation. It's a difficult. Every once in a while I say, that's a difficult one. Mekhi Becton, I said, you had people, he's going to get, I mean, that's a difficult one. Reed's a difficult one.
Yeah,
some guys, Milton was not difficult for me. Not difficult. I said 20 million.
Yeah.
That was the floor.
You ended up being low, and most people thought you were too high to start.
Yeah. That was not difficult. Mekhi was difficult. Reed's difficult.
Where would you go for Reed Blankenship? Because I do wonder, man. I think about all these contracts coming up, John. We talked about, why they moved on from CJ with cash, and people are like, oh, that's not a viable reason. I'm like, it absolutely is. You know how much money they're going to have to put in escrow next year? You got Nolan and Jalen Carter, John, coming up next year.
Yeah. I mean, people say that, don't understand. They're in the moment.
I mean, just think about that, though. Nolan is going to get what? 25 million. If Nolan has 12 sacks this year, what's his contract going to be? 20 to 25 million a year?
Yeah.
Might be less. That might be low.
Yeah. You see where the edge market's going.
Yeah.
What did Danielle Hunter sign for yesterday?
35 or 36 million dollars.
And Danielle is, I don't think he's 30 yet, but he's getting there.
35.6 million he got.
No, I mean age-wise. No, it's short term. He already signed. That's just like a sort of a Saquon Barkley rework. He is 30. Um, Phenomenal player. Don't get me wrong. It's been maybe the most consistent pass rusher over a really long period of time. But that's a big number. That's a big matzo ball, as Jerry Seinfeld would say. Edge rushers, I talked about it with Ojulari 15 times now. That's my concern with Ojulari. People trip over themselves in this league to pay edge rushers.
Yes.
If Nolan Smith gets 12 sacks next year, they will trip over themselves. Now, he won't be available, but you get my point. The Eagles understand what it would mean, and that's part of the reason. Like people flippantly say, well, Jeffrey Lurie's got cash. Yeah, you don't understand the setup. I mean,
well, think about it. If Nolan Smith, let's just project, and I think I'm low here, but let's say he gets 4 years, $100 million with $50 million guaranteed. Let's say Jalen Carter gets 4 years, $150 million? I think that's probably in the ballpark of what he's going to get, $35 million a year.
Yeah.
$100 million plus guaranteed. That's $150 million large. You got to put in escrow in a week. I'm telling you now, Larry wants some cash, man.
I don't even pay no mind to people. No offense, but if you believe that they don't need cash, you don't know, understand the system. And there's only so much we can do. If you don't want to understand this, that's fine. All right, but it's a real thing. But so much of the NFL is esoteric. And, I brought it up with Jordan Davis yesterday. I said, it's almost like you have to be worse on defense for him to prove his worth. That's one of those things. In the case of Nolan Smith, if you don't want to end up paying those numbers Zander just said, you have to hope for him not succeeding.
Yeah.
You don't want that as a fan, right?
No, you don't.
So, if he becomes what you want him to become, that's going to be his worth, and that might be on the low end. As we're pointing out where the edge market is going. And boy, how quick, because I was writing about Brandon, after his retirement. So I was looking at Nolan because he had mentioned Nolan is the leader of that room. So November 24th that's when Brandon tore his triceps against the Rams. Nolan Smith's high water mark was 33 snaps. Decent amount, but 33 snaps.
In one game.
65 to 70 is average range. From November 24th to the Super Bowl is 9 games. 9 games, he changed the narrative. That's how quickly things can change. And he played very well over that time span. Now we're talking about he's the leader of the edge room, and he might be a $25 million player. That's how quickly. But I bring that up to also press the caution button. It's a small sample size, man.
Right.
And that's why I find it very hard to believe that there's still not another move to come at edge rusher.
We'll see what they end up doing there. The reason I brought up those 2 names, though, is because I do think, does it muddy the waters on what you're willing to give Reed? I mean, it would for me. If you think about it, they just got rid of C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They didn't want to give him $8.5 million of cash. They got to pay Reed. They got Nolan and Jalen Carter coming up in the pipeline. I mean, let's be real. Jalen Carter's he is going to break the bank, and he should. He's that good of a player. I mean, I don't know if Reed's as easy as we think here with this contract. I think
you're still talking from an NFL perspective, $10 to $12 million. That's not going to upset anything. I don't think Reed's the guy. Guys who are in the, like, you got to pay Jalen, so you can't pay Milton. Like you project to pay a little bit of
a better comp. Yeah, I got you.
You got to project to pay Nolan down the road, even though I don't think that's the way the Eagles were thinking, but it's working out that way.
What do you mean by that? You don't think that's the way they're thinking?
No, I didn't think that's the way they were thinking with Josh Sweat. Not that they're not thinking they have to pay Nolan. That's not the way. Like, they've known for years they're going to have to pay Jalen. He's only been here for 2 years.
Yeah, right.
They know they have to pay Jalen Carter. Like, they know. With Nolan, it was more up in the air. I just said it's been 9 games. So I think with Josh, but it worked out that way. Like, can you pay Nolan Smith $25 million, pay Josh Sweat $20 million? No, probably not. Now, they did it at what people would say that at wide receiver. So things are changing. Cincinnati just did it. Oh, if you pay AJ, can you pay Devontae? Well, they paid them both. Cincinnati went even to a higher level, and they're arguably them or the Raiders are the cheapest team in the NFL historically. You got to pay your good players, and that's where the Eagles are. And the Eagles have shifted a little bit to running back and linebacker where they probably didn't think they would. So that complicates things as well. So I've said it from the start of this offseason to have sort of this demarcation line of the true players you want to build around foundationally, and everybody under that line is going to be expendable. Reed is under that line, but he's not close enough to that line to be a problem. And by that, I mean, it'll be easy to get him done for the Eagles.
Yeah, we'll see what they end up doing there. A lot of moving parts, John. I brought this up yesterday, and I'm going to give you my thought on Jordan Davis as I thought more about that. We talked about it with me and Sills yesterday, but we'll talk about that in just a second. When I look at this defense, and you can tell me if I'm off base on this, but I like storylines like this. Almost with the exception of Zach Bond, every person on that defense right now is playing for a massive contract, whether it's next year or 2 years or whatever. You look at all the 1-year guys they just signed. You even look at some of their staple players. Jalen Carter, he can't fall off a cliff. Nolan Smith, if he gets 12 sacks, the guy could be making he could be $100 million player. Quinyon, Cooper, Reed, Nakobe Dean, almost every guy on that defense, John, has a bag of money dangling out in front of him, whether it's in Philly or on the open market. And that was aided, I think, by what you just saw. Milton Williams get paid, Josh Sweat get paid, all the free agents this year get paid. I think it's going to be a hungry unit. That doesn't guarantee success or anything, but I do think that's a good thing to have for a young defense, that everybody's motivated, everybody's got at least something on the other side to chase.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much every NFL team. I mean, there's always guys that are in a position where, especially on their rookie deals, they can make a lot of money or they can go in a negative fashion. So I don't think that's necessarily an advantage, but I think, it's a complication because the Eagles have so many good players. I mean, they got to pay projected. They got to pay. That's the whole point. It's not about 1 year. They're looking down the road and they see what's coming up down the road.
Yeah.
Jalen Carter is certain to set the market, as certain as you can be.
Yeah, and he's certain to be re-signed. He's not going anywhere, Jalen.
Barring an act of God, he's certain to set the market. I don't even say re-signed, certain to set the market. By that mean he will be the highest paid defensive tackle in football in the history of football, from whenever to the next guy, the next big time guy. That's the way NFL contracts work. So whoever's number one, he's going to go above that number. He's that guy. Cam's going to be close to it. I don't think he's quite that guy, but he's going to be top 5 center. Then you have 2 years with Carter, Nolan Smith, as you just mentioned. If he hits a home run this season, look out. Then you have 2 years down the road with Quinyon and Cooper. Look, you saw you see the cornerback market. Look out.
Look out is right.
Even Jalen Hunt, so many people are high on Jalen Hunt. Well, what you know, if you play Nolan Smith and Jalen Hunt and Jalen Hunt performs, look out.
And Jalen Hunt doesn't have a 5th-year option. So after not this season, after next season, he's going to be up for the extension.
Yeah.
Same with Cooper.
Well, everybody's up after the 3rd year, even with the 5th-year option.
Yeah, even with the 5th-year
you have more.
You have a little bit more lenient.
Yeah, the 5th-year option to get back to where, you know, what that is for the Dallas Cowboy teams, you know. But basically, you take a 1st-round pick.
Right.
And if you want to play hardball the way the Cowboys play hardball, you have them under your control for 6 years, because you not only have the 5th-year option, but then you can tag them for the 6th year. And really set, if you want to go tag them again, you can tag them again, 7 years, but 6 years on paper. And what I try to explain to people, it's not that the Eagles can't do that. They don't do that. They don't want to do that because they want to have happy, productive employees.